Um, so I can do something like this dot deposit equals, and so now this is a little weird. How am I going to get the deposit button? One thing I can do is that I know jQuery has a .find method, which like looks inside an element for some other kind of element. So I could do something like this .element .find .deposit. I haven't used that in a while, so I'm just going to make sure it works. And I do seem to get something here, so that looks pretty good. So if that's working, then I can also do this dot, let's see, withdraw equals this dot element dot find dot withdraw. And then I also need to get this balance div right here. So I could do this dot balance equals this dot element dot find dot balance, but now I have two balances in here. So let me just rename this one to something like, I'll call it account balance. Actually, what might be even better is if I create a new object called elements, and then inside that I can do deposit this dot element dot find dot deposit, withdraw this dot element dot find withdraw, and balance this dot element dot find balance. And now if I want to get, say, the balance element later on, I can just do this dot elements dot balance, and it'll give me this element right here. I'm going to console log that and make sure it's working. And there it is. So this is sort of like a tidier way of keeping all of my different elements together. This thing is an element too, so I may as well just put it in there as well. I'm going to call this like base. Actually no, then I would have to rework all this, so I'll leave that alone. Okay. All right, so now I have all of my elements. I'm gonna look at this thing. Yep, I can see them all in here. So far so good. May as well make my savings account at this point too. Our savings equals new account savings. Let me just make sure it has all the appropriate classes and everything. Doesn't have anything. So savings, input, deposit, withdraw. All right, so I think I'm good now. Yeah, right?
How come in your object for elements, this refers to the constructor and not the object?
Good question. It's because it's not inside a function. So if this was a function, then this in here would be something different. But because it's not in a function, remember, only functions create scope. And so these guys are not inside a function right now, so they don't have their own scope.
So what if you wanted to say withdraw equals that element, that object's deposit?
Oh, so like this dot deposit dot find, something like that?
Yeah, would that work?
No, probably not.
Yeah.
And so if I did want to do that, then I probably wouldn't just chunk things together into this object like that. Instead, I would probably do this dot elements dot deposit equals, and this dot elements dot withdraw equals, and then I would split it out like that. Excuse me. All right, cool. So I think I've got basically everything in here. I've got all my elements, and I've got my account balance. So now I'm going to start adding in some event listeners. So now I can say this dot elements dot deposit, click, and I'm just going to put a console log there, make sure it's working. Yo. All right, cool. I got a yo, and I got another yo over here. So I know that click listener is working. So now on click, what I want to do is I want to get the value of my input. Wait, what did I do? Oh, I forgot to include that in here. I also need input in here. This dot element dot find dot input. There we go. So let me just make sure that works. This dot elements dot input dot val. And hopefully when I type something in here, it'll give me that number. I don't know, well. What did I do wrong? Of undefined class input, that's okay. All right, I'm not sure what went wrong. So whenever I get cannot read input of undefined, so that's telling me that elements is undefined. And I don't know why that is. So I'm going to look at the thing that elements is attached to, and I'm going to see what's going on there. I'm going to do console.dar this, and I'm going to see what this is. So if I click here, I get this is equal to input deposit. The value of this has changed. This is not my account anymore. Remember, whenever you're inside an anonymous function, the value of this changes to something else. So I need to tell it somehow what exactly I want this to be. I would say the easiest way is to just save this to a variable up here. I'm going to do like var, var account equals this, and then I'm going to just change all of the thises everywhere else. So let me make sure that's working. Hopefully when I click on this, now it's going to say account. Yes. Okay, it says account. Awesome. So with that in mind, if I do account.elements.input.val, now I think it should work. Sweet, there we go. I want to see also if it's working for the savings account over here. If it's working properly, I should get 23. If it's not working, I might get 45, which is I typed in this other one. Cool, and I get 23. So I know it's getting the input from the right text box over here. All right, so I know I have a way of getting the value, so I'm going to save that to a variable. I'm just going to say var input equals account elements input val. I know from before that I need to wrap this whole thing in a parsant. And then, what is missing here? Looks like I'm missing a curly brace. There we go. Okay, and I want to get the balance as well. Now, there are two things that I could do here. One is I could do like, I could get account.elements.balance.val, blah, 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 blah. But I don't actually have to do that. And I don't want to because then I have to worry about the $ and all of that mess. Instead, I'm just going to use this account.balance thing right here. Starts off with a balance of 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, I'm going to say account.balance plus equals input. Let me just see how that worked. So I get 23. Let's see if this turns into 33. And it does. All right, cool. So now what I'm doing is I'm not changing what's inside here yet, but I'm changing the value of this variable right here. So I'm changing the account's balance property. And it's always going to be attached to that particular account. So I don't need to worry about dealing with $ signs and stuff anymore. Now to make this actually show up on the page, I can do account elements balance HTML. And add the $ back in. Count.balance. So now I got 34, and I got 23, and I got 157. And so again, I'm not getting the value from here anymore. In fact, I'm never actually getting the value from here. I'm never reading this. Instead, I'm just taking this and updating it, and taking this account.balance, updating it, and then updating this to reflect whatever that new account.balance is. This is nice because I don't have to worry about, parsing the dollar sign and replacing it and all that stuff. So it's sort of like cutting out one piece of the DOM altogether. All right?
So what would be the difference between using .html or just .text for the balance?
That'd be the same thing. Yeah, and it really doesn't matter in this case. .text is probably more appropriate because it is just text and not HTML. Yeah, next.
In your this.elements.deposit
Mm-hmm.
line, is this replaceable with account as well, or what is that?
Which line is that?
16.
Oh, right, yes. Great point, that is.
How did they work it up? How did they switch with this?
Well, because I'm not changing the value of this here. I'm just saying, hey, I want this variable called account to also point to this. I'm not saying this is something different. I'm just basically putting this in a couple different places.
Okay.
So this will still work fine down here, but just for consistency, you're absolutely right. Using account would be better.
So for this, even if it equals something else, it's still this is still predefined that can still work across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one question for the document already?
Yeah, actually, hold that thought. Wait, 1 second. Whenever you do like a variable equals something, whatever is on the right-hand side is not going to get changed. It doesn't change what's on the right-hand side. It just changes what's on the left-hand side. So if I do account.element equals element, it doesn't change what element is. It just changes what account.element is. And same thing down here. Definitely doesn't change the value of 0. If it did, like my entire computer would crash. It just changes what's on the left-hand side.
Yeah. Is that last bracket at the bottom closing up the document already?
It's.
I was wondering how you use the selector.
Yeah. So it's not actually. It's closing this. I could put all this inside my document.ready if I wanted to, and it would work the exact same way. The only reason I didn't is because then it's more indentations to worry about. The reason this part right here doesn't need to be inside the document.ready is because it's not getting called. It's only getting called in here. So
Okay.
it's only getting called once the document is ready. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if I had these guys out here, then I would start getting errors. But because these guys are inside the document.ready, it's working perfectly fine. By the time account starts getting activated, the document's already ready. Yeah, Charles?
Can you go back to the actual index page?
Mhm. Sure.
Or I'm sorry, not that, the actual web page. Like the
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
If you deposit something in the savings right now, will that also update the checking balance?
I hope so. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
Oh.
But it doesn't update the checking. So that's one nice thing about the way I've done this is because, excuse me, like I'm not hard coding in, checking .deposit anymore. I'm using this .find method, which is looking inside whatever I pass in here. So here I'm passing in the checking div. That is this guy right here. .find says look inside this particular element for something matching a selector. It's basically $ thing all over again, just inside a particular part of the HTML. So if you do $, it looks throughout the your entire web page. If you just do .find, then it looks within whatever is over here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Take your word for it.
What is the in the function account?
Mm-hmm.
What is the argument element referring to?
It's referring to this. Not this, but okay, it's referring to that. There we go. That's better. So I'm getting the checking element right here, and I'm passing that in as the argument. So if I change this to wombat, now element would be wombat, which wouldn't be very helpful. Cool. And so now that I've got deposit working, I can do withdraw like basically the exact same way. In fact, I'm just going to copy this entire thing. I'm going to change deposit to withdraw, and I'm going to change this to minus equals. I think that's it. Let's find out. So if I do 23 and then I withdraw 100, I get minus 77. Bam. And all I had to do is just change 2 different words.
What did you say?
Yeah. So I copied and pasted this, and then I just changed deposit to withdraw because I only want this to happen when I click on the withdraw button. And I changed this thing right here from plus equals to minus equals. So it subtracts instead of adds. So I just changed those 2 things, and that's it.
Sorry, I'm just kind of going back to the deposit click function.
Mhm.
How is it that you only have, can you explain again how you only have that one deposit click function, but it's working separately with the checking thing?
Yeah. So it's because I'm doing this new account thing twice. So let me walk through what's going on here. When I do new account on this line, on line 2, it's gonna run this function, and it's passing in this checking element right there. So it's passing in the checking element. That's element right now. When it runs function this first time, it's looking just inside that checking element for deposit. And so the value, this deposit button, that's the one that's inside checking. It's one that's inside checking because I told it right here, hey, I only want the deposit element that's inside checking. Dot find looks inside this element right here for something matching that selector. It's like $, except just within a particular element instead of the entire web page. And so when I run it again over here with the savings account, it does the exact same thing, but just for the savings div. Does that make sense?
Because you're using it this way, it's able to target whatever that, not saying parent is, but because you're using this instead of specifically like checkings or
Exactly.
savings, and then you have the same classes and IDs in both.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly right. So the template, like the HTML, is almost exactly the same for both of them. In fact, I think it literally is exactly the same, except this says savings and this says checking. Max?
Just to understand this dot find a little further.
Mhm.
What do you, so the dot find looks at the element, but all of those deposit, withdraw, balance, and input are looking at the element. Can you describe the difference between the elements of deposit, withdraw, balance, and input?
Could you say that again?
So the dot find looks at the element within deposit. Is that
So dot find is saying look inside. So it's account.element.find. It's saying look inside account.element. Let me give you another example. If I were to do, so I'll just use my favorite word, wombat.find dot balance, then this would be saying look inside the element with the ID of wombat for something with the class of balance. So it's saying look for this thing, but only inside this element, not the entire web page, just this element. In this case, account.element is equal to checking. So it's saying just look inside checking for the deposit. Or when I'm running this for the savings account, it's saying just look inside the savings account for deposit, withdraw,
Can
yada
you
yada.
describe that actually, why it's looking at the checking?
Because I passed that in up here. So let me look at the savings account actually. And I'll delete that wombat thing. Ugh, that wasn't it. So when I run new account here, what I'm passing in right here into the parentheses is savings. So element right now, on line 3, element is the savings div. You with me so far? Okay, so element is a savings div. Then here, so here's element again. I'm saving that savings div to account.element. So now account.element is a savings div. So now down here I have account.element, that's a savings div, and then .find deposit. So it's saying look inside the savings div for .deposit. You're welcome. Yeah, Matt?
That's where I was confused. I was trying to figure out how you were calling the savings and the checking IDs by using the element
Mm-hmm.
by account, and that's argument brackets right there. It's the same setup as you have in your variables.
Mm.
So you're actually able to pass in those at the top, and then it'll go through that's each line.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you call that function.
Yep. And I mean, there are lots of different ways I could do this. I mean, like I could do, dot checking input, blah, blah, blah. I could do that. It would just be writing a lot more code. And so this is like a tidier way of doing it.
Since the checkings div is inside, the balance is inside that div, could you just took out the account.balance, or you just wanted to have it at 0, that's why you kept it in there?
So these are two different things. Account.balance, that's like the actual balance of my account. This is account.elements.balance. So that's the part of the web page into which I'm going to be putting the balance later on.
Okay.
So they're named similarly, but they're different things. Yeah, and so this, I mentioned that before. I think that like this is sort of a thing called name spacing, which is just where you like take a whole bunch of stuff and just give it all sort of a prefix. Like in this case, account.elements is the prefix for all of these. I have account.elements.deposit, account.elements.withdraw, account.elements.balance, and it's just sort of a way of tidying things up and keeping them organized. I mean, I don't have to do it that way. I could do like account.deposit element, but then I would have to write element a whole bunch more times, and it's a long word. I think that's pretty much it for this one.
But you start that out.
Sure. So with that, I mean, if I were to like go on from here, then I would say like, if account.balance is less than 0, or like then like alert, can't do that, yo. Otherwise, do something like this. And that way I could make sure that my account never goes below 0. But this is a shitty bank, so it's letting you withdraw more money than you actually have.
So I think part of the deciding point is if you try to withdraw an amount that's greater than your balance, it doesn't do anything. How would you do that? Is that
That's exactly what I'm talking about right here. So let me put that back
has
in.
nothing to do with like not turning off the matter?
Nah. Yeah, and actually that reminds me of something that I saw a lot of people trying to do in the project was like under certain conditions, like trying to use remove event listener. I can count on like one finger the number of times I've actually used event listener, because removing event listeners and putting them back is really annoying. Instead, it's a lot easier just to have something inside the event listener. So every time I click on this, it's going to fire. It's going to do something. But I'm telling it what to do under different situations. So I could say like, well, here, let me show you the way I would do this. I would say if account.balance minus input is greater than 0, and you know what? I'll say new balance equals account.balance minus input. So if the new balance is greater than 0, then that is perfectly fine. I'll say account.balance equals new balance, yada yada. But if it's less than 0, that's not cool. So I'm going to say you don't have enough, and that's it. And so when I run this, like right now, if I try to withdraw $100, it's going to tell me I don't have enough. So this event listener is still firing. It's just I'm telling it, hey, I only want you to actually update the account balance under certain situations. So this saves me a lot of work. I don't have to worry about removing event listeners or anything. This event is still going to fire every single time I click on it. But I'm just telling it to only do stuff under certain situations, which saves me a lot of code.
So if you took that else and alert out?
Oh yeah, so it would still, now it just won't tell me like, yeah, now it's just not going to do anything. But if I deposit $100 and then try to withdraw 99, that should be perfectly fine. But now if I try to withdraw 99 again, now it's just not going to do anything. Cool. So it's 10 right now. Let me introduce the lab, and then you guys can go on your way. So the lab is tic-tac-toe. Let me pull it up. Tic tac, that's not it. Just looking here. Jeez, I have 6 Slack messages. What's going on? Say what? I'll Slack it down here anyway, just in case someone doesn't feel like clicking over. Yeah. Actually, I think I'm just going to add it as a new solution branch, and then you can look at that. All right. There we go. So this is tic-tac-toe, which is just creating the tic-tac-toe game. So it sounds really easy, but if you're not careful, it can really get away from you. So it's really important that you limit yourself to doing small steps on this one. 100% serious. It sounds simple, but again, it can quickly get away from you. So we've detailed how to get started here. Like the very first thing you do is you just set up your HTML, your CSS, and create a script tag. None of them even do anything yet. Just start off creating your file structure. Then the next step is to create your grid. And then after that, then we give you like a couple different starting points here too. But this is something where I would really, really strongly encourage you to rubber duck with someone, just so you can think this out. Like getting the X's and O's to show up, that's not too difficult, but the really difficult part is trying to calculate who the winner is. And there are lots of different ways to do that. This is also what I did for the bronze, silver, gold thing back in the day. If you want to look at that, there are like 4 different, well, there's a bronze, silver, and gold, and then the platinum version of that. The platinum version is object-oriented. The other ones aren't. And you're welcome to look at that. But I would really strongly encourage you to work with someone else and just take super, super small steps. And by super small steps, I mean exactly what I was doing up here where, it's just like write one line, console log, save, refresh. Write one line, console log, save, refresh. That small. The sooner you get used to doing that, the better off you'll be. I can 100% guarantee. And that's it. So we're going to have people, we're going to have office hours throughout the day. As usual, we'll have someone, I don't know, in here or in there, or maybe just outside from 10 to 12, and then again from 2:30 to 4:30, and then after that we'll have a squad scrum. That's pretty much it. Any questions about what you're doing today, Hillary?
Do you want 4:30 or 9 a.m. tomorrow?
So technically it's due at 9 a.m. tomorrow, but I would really strongly encourage you just to turn it in at 4:30. Mm-hmm.
I didn't really do the other projects, but like, how would you create the grid? I guess the 3x3 grid.
So there are a couple different ways to do that. You could use a table if you want. We haven't really talked about tables so far, but they're pretty easy. You can look at that. Or you could just, create 9 divs.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, doesn't matter. Whatever floats your boat.
All right.
The only thing about using 9 divs is you just have to like resize the window or use CSS to make sure they line up the proper way. But yeah.
When is it better to do a for loop to create divs than rather than just having HTML?
To do what?
Because this time I see you want to do a for loop and then have like actually create the divs in JavaScript. When is it better to do that way rather than HTML?
So I would say that would be better if there's a chance you'll change the number of divs. So like with the trivia games you guys made or the memory games, I mean, that's something that should be easy to change, how many squares you have on your page or how many trivia questions you have. But for something like tic-tac-toe, I mean, the vast majority of the time you're just going to have a 3x3 grid. So I think starting off just with hard coding that is totally fine. If you like get everything done, then maybe start looking into like, oh, what if someone wants to do, like 30x30 tic-tac-toe? And then maybe start looking into that. But I would say just start off with hard coding it. Unless you want to try the for loop thing, that's perfectly fine too, if you just want to experiment with it a bit more. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Thank you guys. It cracks me up when you guys do that. I mean, I appreciate it, but